Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. I'm your host, Jordan Samuel Fleming, and I'm joined on today's episode by Jon Nolen, president and co-founder of Pete REI. Now, Pete REI is a REI CRM, really full-featured system, and it's really funny because in this episode, Jon has a software development background, which I didn't know about until I spoke with him, and that makes a really big difference about how he sees the development of the system, how he looks. He ended up building Pete initially just to manage his own stuff. He had the software development background, and then he built up an actual system that could scale. And there was a lot of great bits of this conversation. Particularly, one of the things that I thought was really interesting was when we talked a bit about the KPI element, dashboards and KPIs. And Jon made a really good point about how dashboards and KPIs really can show you the outliers, the highs and the lows. It's not so much about, too many investors focus on this idea of data and having lots of data and access to data. The truth is, for most of us and for most investors, what really matters is that we identify the problems or the wins. What's working really well so we can dial that up, what's not working so we can fix it. And I think there's a really nice conversation here where we explore that a little more. Definitely recommend you go check out Pete REI. The links are in the show notes, and enjoy the show. Okay, I'm live here today with Jon Nolen from Pete REI. Jon, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you just introduce yourself and your product to the listeners?
Hey, thanks for having me, Jordan. I appreciate it. I'm Jon with Pete REI Software. I'm an investor myself. Before I got into investing, which is a long story by itself, I won't go into. But before I got into investing, I was in software development. And so I had a software development background and hated having all these different tools all over the place, and just started kind of pulling them together, creating Band-Aids at one point, really is what it was. Started out as to bring things together so I wasn't seeing things fall through the cracks. And eventually that kind of turned into its own thing, and that's where Pete REI Software came from.
That's fantastic. I so rarely see investors that have a software background. I mean, given how much the investment space relies on technology, there really aren't that many people that I've met that have a software background and can actually think about the systems and get annoyed enough by problems to look. I love your idea, the idea of a Band-Aid, right? There's so many times when you're cobbling together systems, you're cobbling them together and nothing's quite working the way you want it to do, right?
Exactly.
So you, how long has Pete REI been going? Just to give me a background.
All in all, it's been around almost 5 years. Commercially, it's been out there for 2. We kept it under wraps and kept it. Initially, it was just intended for my own companies, for my flipping, wholesale, and rental companies. I didn't intend for it to be anything else. But we released it a little over 2 years ago.
And you mentioned the flipping, wholesaling, and rental. So is your system one that can kind of manage all those different types of transactions? You can do wholesaling, you can do rentals, you can, so is there an element of property management in there as well? Or basically how complete is that part of the system?
That's a fair question. Initially, we didn't have anything for property management other than just kind of keeping track of what properties we had and some basic info like lease start dates and end dates and lease amounts, but no portal for tenants to log in and put in maintenance requests and make payments. That stuff, depending on when this goes live, I don't know, maybe out, maybe not. We're very, very close to having that as a full functioned part of, because that's something I always wanted to do. I hated having another software over there. And so it really takes from when the lead comes in, takes over from there. So instead of just stopping once you get the property under contract, whether you're wholesaling or flipping, instead of stopping right there, it goes all the way through your transaction coordination until you're done with everything. So all your stuff's right there. So an easy example is you're wholesaling a property and somebody comes back and wants to know, information about the roof or whatever the case is. Well, your dispo person, unless they have access to your CRM, doesn't doesn't know that. So then it's oh, let me go ask the acquisition manager, or let me go look at these notes. And it's this big pile of garbage that people are trying to sort through. Having that in one place, so it's all in one, just makes it so much easier for people.
Fantastic. I mean, I know you kind of started this by solving your own problems, because that's, which I think is the absolute, that's how I started smartphone. I was looking for a phone system that would integrate with Podio, and there wasn't one. So, we built it. But everything changes when you start getting customers. Like, it's one thing to build for yourself. And then when you start building product and start scaling a product, everything changes. Can you, like, when you started to work with other people, when you started to bring other investors in, what were the things you like, were there anything you learned when you started working with other people and how they were using systems that were different than how you did? I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, there were. And now this is where my previous software background comes into play, because I worked for a pharmacy software company that made software for independent pharmacies in the US. So we had 2,000 some odd different pharmacies that all wanted to do things a little bit different. So I'd been through something similar before, although I wasn't in the beginnings of that. I've been in this situation a little bit before. So we approached Pete with, this is how we do things, but I hated, easy example, I hated CRM saying, these are the dashboards you need to see. These are the ones that are valuable. Okay, well, that may work for you. That may work for me now sometimes, but everybody has their own business. So we kind of built Pete, even when we were building it for ourselves, with the idea that things happen in different ways. We need to look at things different ways. You're not always going to go through the same process. So we had that in mind to begin with, that we're going to have different ways of doing things. Now, once you bring in those other users, you start getting other ideas of, oh, I never even thought of this whole paradigm. I thought that I had all these different angles thought of. And then it takes a lot of, and you've been through this, thinking about, getting that feedback, getting those thoughts, and then thinking, okay, is this going to be something that helps a few users, most of my users, only one user? If it's only one user, that can be a difficult conversation of, I see where you're coming from, but we really need to be able to help everybody. But if it helps other people, then I'm all for it. I'm not one that goes, oh, well, I didn't think of that. Now that shouldn't be that way. I love getting that feedback and that interaction from our users.
I love that. I love that you do that. I think it's core to our approach at Smartphone. I've always had people, 80% of our feature ideas come from our customers.
Yep.
And that's as it should be, in my view. It's like, listen to them, and then, but to your point, where you've got some really off the wall, this only helps one person because they're very, they've got their own really interesting model. Sometimes you just have to say, look, I'm sorry, we can't invest in that one.
Yep.
And
so usually people are understanding of that.
100%. And what I find is, we made the decision, I don't know, I'm curious how your approach to it. We made the decision early on not to do custom development, that we would do features for all, but we wouldn't build custom for people, like bespoke elements. Is that how you've approached it?
Yeah, same approach. Just because that's a huge rabbit hole you can go down, huge expense. And then the person may end up going, oh, actually, the way you were described it before actually works best. And say, oh, great. We just spent, same thing. I've been down that road, and it's not a good road to go down.
It opens up scope creep. Like, anybody who's been in software development, it just opens up a world of pain. And you never manage the customer's expectation right, even if it's a small thing, because they think it's small. They're like, well, why would this take more than an hour? And you're like, And so, no, I agree. Right? Yeah, come on, this should be really easy, right? And you're like, well, that's not really how this works. But so in terms of, when I think of a good, I truly believe that anybody who's investing in marketing as a real estate investor should have a really robust CRM. Okay. The moment you start spending money on leads, you should be managing them properly. One of the ways I see people missing out on their CRMs a lot of time is on just leaving leads, always concentrating on the new leads and never concentrating up on the follow-up. How does your system, how does Pete approach the follow-up? What sort of ways do you deal with follow-up and help investors follow up on leads?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things I see with investors as well, is they're always focused on the new. and they forget that most of the money comes in the follow-up. We do it several ways, but generally the way we guide our people to doing it is we set up workflows or automations, drip campaigns, whatever you want to call them, attached to statuses within the properties. So keep it simple. Instead of having to, adjust the status, adjust the temperature, go and put in your notes and select what drip campaigns you want to have happen, we have buckets. We call them statuses. Long-term follow-up, short-term follow-up, offer rejected. And then we have drip campaigns that are linked directly to those. So they just make that one change, save, and it automatically starts applying. And those come out of the box with Pete, but they also can be customized to whatever people want. I mean, people can have as many different drip campaigns as they would like. And they can take into account things like tagging. So if you tag a property of tired landlord, you could have a different drip campaign that'll see that and kind of key off of it some.
So you can customize. The more specific you are tagging your properties, the more specific you can be matching a cadence or a follow-up sequence, which is incredibly important because the generic never sells. Right. The specific does. Okay. And in terms of another thing that I've seen, given your point about sequences, automation is an absolutely critical element of good CRM. Saving time, making sure things don't get dropped. But it's not just about cadences of automated communication or things like that. It's often a lot of times, pushing things up in front of people's viewpoints when they need them. Mm-hmm. What's your approach to sort of, if I'm scaling a team, because one person's easy. When you start scale people, that's when things need, break down. How do you view kind of team management and visibility from, as they scale? How do you kind of tackle that bit inside Pete?
I tackle that with dashboards. Our dashboards in Pete are customizable. People can essentially, if it's a data point in the software, you can create a dashboard widget to show it or show it over time or whatever the case is. So an easy one, when I'm talking about scaling, a lot of times people try to get out of tasks. They think, oh, well, tasks are rigid. No, tasks is how you know if people did something or not. I've had CRMs that had tasks that were task driven, but then there was no way to report on those tasks or to see what tasks people completed. Well, that's very vital too. I mean, somebody may show no overdue tasks, but if you look and they've only completed 5 in the last week, they're not very busy. Opposed to somebody who may have completed 250. Now, if you have if most of your team is completing around 250 tasks a week, and then you have one person that shows 1,000, okay, that's a little blinker and a little, just a dashboard can show you that, hey, something's not right. They probably went in and BS'd and just marked a bunch of stuff complete. It's a huge red flag. So dashboards are really what we focus on with that, and being very, very task driven. Go in, see what tasks you have. The top tasks are the ones that are overdue, if they're overdue. If not, it's what you need to do next. Focus on those, just go down. And from a higher level, just look and see what other people are doing. Are they completing tasks? Do they have overdue tasks? Etc.
I love to hear that because I am super task oriented and I hate when I'm dealing with a team that isn't. I put a task in for everything. It doesn't really matter. I got tasks to like buy milk. I mean, I task myself for everything because it's also, to me, being task oriented means it's out of my head. That's the hidden superpower of tasks that people who hate tasks, I think, don't realize, is that the moment you take it out of your head and you put it into a system that's going to remind you to do it, you no longer have the stress of going, shit, what was I going to do? What was I supposed to do tomorrow? And I think that's a really important part of tasks that isn't talked enough about, because people who don't like tasks are like, oh, I don't want to be constrained by tasks. Yeah, but you don't want to be set free by tasks then.
And most of the time, not all the time, but most times they don't want to be accountable to tasks is where that comes from. But even if you're a one-man show or one-woman show, tasks are huge. Oh, you talk to seller Julie and you need to call her back next Thursday at 2. Yeah, it's easy to think you're going to remember that, but you're going to forget majority of the time, especially as you start getting busier. And then that's just money going right out the window. You have to follow up with people. And if you say you're going to follow up with somebody at a certain time, you better do it.
Or you lose their trust and relationship immediately.
Yep.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, for me, the other thing I caught on to your what you said about tasks and dashboards was this idea of the outlier or those points that make you look. And I think that's something that I think people misunderstand about dashboards a lot of time. I think they get obsessed with the idea of seeing pretty graphs some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people are just like, "Ooh, look at my graphs," and look, But the truth is, dashboards to me are only ever about spotting outliers.
Yep. Your
That's
highs and your lows.
yeah, your highs and your lows. Like it's only normally dashboards just show you the same damn thing. If everything's clugging along nicely, your dashboards are going to be in a normalized place where dashboards you almost don't need to look at them. It's when you see the outliers or the problems that you should be able to use them to drill down.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something I don't think people do.
No, most people don't. And I can also say that most people don't. They may spend a lot of time getting a dashboard configured or set up, or they have a VA doing it, and then they never look at it. I know,
Or they do all the time, or you get those other investors that are paralyzed by data and just spend all the time like making cool graphs. And like I've seen investors spend so much time making these elaborate Excel sheets, and they're like, so you spent 2 weeks on this really big Excel sheet. How many deals did you like? How many calls did you make? Oh yeah, but look at all this data. I'm like, yeah, okay, but how many calls did you make?
Yep, data's not going to buy houses. It's good to have the data available, but most investors don't need to spend the time doing that. They need to have tools that create that data for them because they're doing it in technology. That was something else I hated was, one system would show that we had this many leads, another system would show that we had this many new calls. And it's like, okay, why don't these match up? This is ridiculous. Why pay somebody to calculate your data and go through all that process? Just technology should have that information for you.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt this amazing conversation, but I wanted to make sure you knew that Smartphone, the only phone system built for real estate investors, connects to the best-in-class real estate investing CRMs. And because, as it's my show and I am co-founder and chairman of Smartphone, I got some great deals for you. Click the link and take advantage of 5,000 minutes free calling with Smartphone, the only phone system built for real estate investors. Click and call. Close more leads. Back to the show. Well, and now with the new, you and I were sitting in a room the other day talking about AI. Mm-hmm. Obviously I don't think there's a software company on the planet right now that's not looking at AI or doing things with AI. I mean, it's just, it would be impossible not to. But to your point about the data outliers and dashboards, I think we're going to get to a point really soon where the truth is I don't need to look at any dashboards because my AI is just going to tell me when there's an outlier.
Yeah.
Like, and I can't wait for that because it's like, I don't really care about looking at pretty graphs. I just need something to tell me, oh, this is maybe a problem. Go look at it.
Yeah. Just a blip comes up on the radar.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any specific areas of AI in terms of real estate investment that you are looking forward to?
Yeah. The bigger for everybody, I think, even outside real estate, are AI agents that'll interact with customers or sellers. That's obviously huge. That's something we've been working on. But what I really think is cool and that we've been working on for, almost 9 months is being able to take pictures of a house or video of a house and estimate the rehab based on it. So idea here is the seller sends you in pictures while you're on the phone with them. You can have AI look at those pictures and have it's never going to be perfect, but a somewhat reasonable scope of what kind of repairs need to be made. And then that's kind of builds in and helps your underwriting process. You're not having to go in and underwrite it as well later because you already have that trained to look at it. That's what I'm really, really, really excited about. We're not there yet, but we're getting better.
Yeah, no. So taking that and also speeding up
mm-hmm.
the speeding up that process so that you're not wasting time on a lead that's just clearly not suitable.
Yep.
Because that's another part of. I mean, one of the other things that I've seen as being probably the biggest challenge to people not using a CRM properly is because a lot of people don't keep their data clean inside of CRMs. Mm-hmm. Which drives me nuts, but it means that they tend to waste a lot of time on bad leads or dead leads, or and because they don't know any better because their system's a mess, right? I mean,
Yeah. And I had was having a conversation with a customer the other day about AI and some stuff that we're working on and that they thought would be cool to see. And I was like, that would be great. But if you don't, they were talking about like historical, what zip code should I be flipping? Which zip codes do I do the best in? Should I wholesale this house? These kind of awesome questions that AI will be able to help. And I kind of posed back that, okay, are you actually updating your actual rehab amounts in Pete? No. How's Pete going to know if it was a good rehab for you or not?
yeah. Well, it's not magical. You do have to put in it's funny, I just came out with my new book, and the first chapter is about data. Not about the phone. It's about data, because without good data, without clean data in your systems, then you are basically going into battle with one hand tied behind your back. In my mind. Yeah. It's and the what people don't understand a lot of times is that the cost of bad data isn't just wasted time by your agents, but the amount of trust you can lose from people when you've got this lead in 6 times because of crappy data management, and 4 different people call this lead within the space of a day and a half, and they've already asked you to not stop calling, and you've just called them 5 times by 4 different numbers from 4 different agents. And all of that would have been avoided if you had taken the time to keep your data clean. But instead, what could have been a good deal will never ever deal with you because of bad data and what it led you to do.
Yep. Yeah, that's very, very, very true. People, and I know that I forgot who it was, but somebody used to have a shirt that said "Data is king." It's like, yeah, data is huge. That's what all of our stuff in our world now is all driven by data. People don't realize it. Whether it's AI, whether it's Google, I mean, Meta, it's all about the data.
Everything is data centric at this point, and more importantly, I also, I think that good data is the conversation we need to be having. The amount of times I've seen people just be like, have the attitude of, I'll just buy a lot of data and I'll just throw, right? Like I'm just gonna buy a lot of cheap data and I'll run at it. I'll run into the wall with it, and chances are I'm gonna make enough sales to make it worthwhile. I mean, that's a way of doing it. It's not a great way of doing it, and it's inefficient, and it loses 80% of the power behind a CRM like Pete if you're not gonna give it the tool. If you're gonna handcuff Pete's and its ability to help you run your business, then what's the point?
Exactly. That's a very, very, very good point.
Now I saw also, when just one of the other areas that I find from a CRM point of view is just the smoothness of grabbing data into your system. So people will be using websites like Carrot or any of these other systems. Do you have a smooth way of grabbing all the leads from a variety of sources and bringing them in, letting people understand the true ROI on the campaigns they're doing about that? How do you guys approach that?
Yeah, things are coming from Carrot or an external source like that. Generally, just like most people, we use Zapier. We have the ability to do custom webhooks, but most of the time people just send them through Zapier. But yeah, in the we track them in marketing campaigns, and in those marketing campaigns, everyone gets an attribution, and you can put in your forecasted ad spend, and then you can also refine it as time goes on, so that it tracks automatically every cost per lead, every cost per contract. But then you can take it a little bit further, and some people do this, some don't. You have the ability in Pete to mark a lead as qualified or not. Everybody has their own definition of what a qualified lead is. But the nice thing there is if you have your cost pers, what I call them, based on qualified leads, those spams, those wrong numbers, those other, they don't even that doesn't matter when it comes to your marketing spend. So throw those out, for real time within 5 minutes or so, what your actual marketing spend is per lead, per contract, based on when that lead came in. And we try. I am crazy about tracking that. You always have to track that. And there's times that somebody may call my integrity home buyers business, and they call us off the website number. And one of the questions we ask them is, how'd you hear about us? Well, a pushback I got from people a long time ago was, well, they're calling your website number, of course. Okay. But you'd be amazed at how many times people say, I saw your TV commercial. We changed that campaign. So we've got that attribution, so it automatically knows when that came in. So
you see that true value that's come in from that TV commercial, not the, oh, well, I remember seeing that. Oh, yeah, what was it? Now I'm going to have to go Google it, which is how most people do TV campaigns.
Yep.
Because very rarely are you sitting in front of the TV and you're right there directly to it or scanning a QR code. Usually it's in your head and you go, I'm going to have to look at that. And the next day is when it happens.
Yeah. And we used to be on radio as well. And we had majority of our calls from radio were people saving our number. And we followed up with them and went through processes there, but most of them never reached out again, or we never were able to reconnect with them. And, I didn't want to include that in my KPIs because if somebody's just saving our number and never interacts with us again, we can't get them to respond. They never answer. I don't want to include that. That doesn't matter to me. It's the value of the qualified leads that matters.
Well, and what I really like about your approach there, and something that I used to teach when I was building custom CRMs back in the day, something I was militant on was every month you should be putting in what you spend on each marketing channel. Mm-hmm. Because every single month, because then you will have a genuine understanding of which channels are working for you. And over time, you'll be able to see the trend, and you'll then be able to understand how can you dial up performance by just adding more money to this channel.
Yep. Yeah. And tracking your return on ad spend.
Yeah. And you're never going to do that unless you track it.
Nope. And tracking it somewhere else, although sounds nice, sounds easy, I should say. Have a VA go in and pull these KPIs, put it in a spreadsheet. Why pay somebody to do that when technology already has that same information? Just put in what your spend is. And for the people that say, well, you know what, it's not going to be exact during the month because I don't know how much I'm going to spend. Okay, but at least you have an idea. You know how you're progressing in that month. Oh, at this point in the month, my cost per lead is $500. Ooh, not good. Well, we're halfway through the month. Let me see. Okay, it's going to continue to go down.
I can't agree more. And also, I just think not enough people, if you're not tracking this stuff towards right to the end of the process as well, I'm not actually that interested in how many leads I get from any channel. I am, but I'm more interested in how much money I make from each channel.
The conversions.
That's what matters. So vanity is to say I got 200 leads. Sanity is to say, but I made 50,000 profit. That's what matters to me. And then I can see it. And if people aren't doing to your point, if people aren't doing that, then they're never seeing the actual case.
Right. And in your example, if I'm going to make $50,000 on a deal, if that lead costs me $5,000, I'm fine with that. I'll pay $5,000 to get a $50,000 profit any day. I don't care what the lead cost is. It's the cost per close is what we look at the most.
Absolutely. And too many people, I think, do their KPIs on the front end. So just top of funnel, like just how many leads they get. Mm-hmm. And they don't take it through to the end, understanding the true cost of the conversion and the profit in there, because you also can tend to see if you do that properly, you can then understand what markets are working the best for me, what channels are working best for me based on timeline, effort, and money. And then you can really hone in and kind of play casino on this and dial up exactly where you need to be, but only if you're tracking that stuff and actually looking at it in the right way.
Yep. Another one that we like to look at, or not like to look at, but like to have out there is lost deal value. So properties that went under contract then ended up falling out. Could be at no fault to us, could be any random thing. But then having that on a dashboard that our team sees on a constant basis, we do it for the year. So over the year, we've lost $180,000 in value. That kind of helps reinforce going through steps, making sure we're dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, that things are together. And it's something negative to look at, but it helps. It helps keep people keep their mind straight.
I do like that idea. I'm a big fan of visibility of simple numbers as well. Like like we're giving the team us like one number for a target. Great. Giving a team one number for a reverse target, sort of in your example there, where it's really look at how much money we've lost and how can we do better. All Either way, giving the team simple number to focus on, I think, is a really useful thing.
I agree. And it's very few simple numbers. I know at one point this is years ago, tried getting too many KPIs to my team. I think every person had 7 to 10 every month, and it was overwhelming to everybody. And at one of the masterminds that I'm part of, I was talking about it during one of our presentations, and rightfully so, I got kind of slammed by everybody. If you're giving people too many things to worry about.
Yeah, I always have a general, everybody in our company in Smartphone knows I have a rule of sort of three. You should never have more than three priorities or three things to do at any one given time, three things to focus on, because if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority.
Yep.
And if you're, I want everybody, I also, and you'll appreciate this probably from a technology point of view. If you got 8 features you're working on, chances are you're not working on any of them well. And the whole process, all of them will take longer than you should. Whereas if you just knuckled down and gone, we're going to get these 2 done. Yep. And then we'll move on to the next end. Your actual time frame will be much better. Focus is the key, though.
Yep. When you start talking about if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority, that's immediately where my mind went. Is if every issue, I don't want to say bug, if every issue that comes up, if every feature is the priority, then you're just kind of floating around. You're not going to have good direction on anything. You have to have a singular focus of where you're going.
Absolutely. And I tell, like, in the company, I only ever lay out 2, maximum 3 priorities at any given time, because it's like, right, because everything else, whatever, these are the 3 things we care about right now, because then you can focus everybody's mind on those. You give them 8 things to care about, they're ping-ponging back and forth and trying to figure out what to do next. But you give them 2 or 3, and you can genuinely focus.
Yep.
Well, listen, Jon, as we close out here, before we get into how people can get involved with Pete, I do have 3 questions I always ask people on the podcast. Number 1, what is the biggest mistake you personally have made with real estate investing technology?
Honestly, my biggest mistake early on was chasing shiny objects. Every new app that I looked at or saw promised to automate something or make this more efficient or do this or that. And before long, I ended up with just disconnected systems that didn't talk, and I didn't have any reliability of data. I'd have one system saying this, and another one saying something else. So which one's truth? So with that, I learned technology really multiplies what you're already doing. So if your processes are a mess, it's going to make it 10 times worse. If your processes are in line, technology should make those things better. So really just having a single, kind of going back to, if one thing's a priority, then nothing is, having a focus and staying focused with that and not getting distracted by shiny objects.
I think everybody listening to this will recognize the shiny object syndrome, particularly in the real estate investing community. That's a big one I've seen over the years. Second question is, what's your best advice on how to integrate technology into a real estate investing business if someone's starting out on that?
I would say start with their workflow, not the technology. So start with what you want to accomplish, what you want to happen, and also what's happening now. So you have that converse view on it, and then figure out how to bring technology into it. Too often people look at a technology and go, oh, that's great, let me do it. Well, if it's way outside the scope of where you're going or what your process is, it's not going to be a good solution. So map out your workflow, start with what you're doing, where you want to change, and then how technology can help it.
I think that's fantastic. Final question. If someone is just starting out, because I get a lot of people just starting out in the real estate and investing business, what 3 technology products, types of technology would you recommend they start with?
First, I'd say a CRM. Obviously, I'm biased towards Pete for good reason, but that's where I would start. That's the foundation. handle your leads. Make sure you're not losing money on those leads that come in that you don't follow up with. Keep all your KPIs in one place, etc. Second, Loom. As you start growing, Loom is great. You can record doing things, hand it off to VA, or just so that you remember it later, exactly how you did something. And with Loom's AI features now, it can create SOPs for you. So it's super, super easy. Third is like the least sexy of them all, but QuickBooks, so that you know where your money's going and where it's coming from. Too often investors have no idea what their balance sheet looks like, what their cash flow looks like. They just see what's in the bank right now. So it's very, very non-sexy, but QuickBooks. Caveat, my parents were accountants, so I grew up in accounting office. This actually was my dad's office where I'm staying in at right now. So that may have swayed my thought a little bit, but know where your money's going and where it's coming from.
Well, what I really like about that is the way you said QuickBooks was so sort of it was so QuickBooks. It was it is what it is. QuickBooks.
It's not sexy. It's not fun. It's not a shiny object, but it is so valuable that people just overlook having simplicity and actually knowing what their numbers are, and not just at the end of the year going to their accountant with, okay, here's my bank statements. I don't know how much money I made or not.
No, I agree with that. I mean, absolutely. And also, as you scale a business, that becomes even more critical. I mean, everything happens with scale. If you're starting out just by yourself doing, if you're a wholesaler who's just starting out and wanting to get maybe 2 or 3, deals in a year, just starting out, you can do that with a piece of paper and a pen, honestly. Right. That's the truth. The moment you want a serious business, the most you want the actual, a business that will grow with you and that you're not going to be slave to, but instead you're going to be reaping the rewards from. That's really also where the technology goes from being a nice to have to being a critical component.
Yeah, something you have to have.
I don't think there's any business nowadays that can scale without a strong technological base to it.
No, I don't think so either. Hands down.
Well, Jon, it was a pleasure to meet you recently and sit down next to you. Thank you so much for joining today. Before we leave, can you just let everybody know how they can find Pete and how can they sign up and get more information?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me. I really, really appreciate it. To get more info on Pete, they can go to PeteREI.com. Our pricing's on there. We actually have a coupon code. If they use the code smartphone, they get half off their first month. So just a little thank you for having us on here. If they want to reach out to me directly, you can do it there, or I'm on Instagram and Facebook as the Flipping IT Guy. People think it's the Flipping It Guy. It was supposed to be Flipping IT. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put all those codes and those the Instagram accounts, everything into the show notes. Jon, pleasure to see you. Thanks so much for joining me, and have a fantastic day.
Thanks, you too, man.
Thanks for listening to another amazing episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. Head over to thatrealestatetechguy.com to check out all episodes and get special discounts on tons of awesome real estate technology platforms.